Hello and happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
This is the Two Mats Q&A brought to you by the subscribers of the New European newspaper.
It sure is.
Should we dive straight in?
Let's do it.
Andy in Sevenoaks writes, excellent interview with Damien Collins. Thank you. This was the podcast we did last week. Which
On
was
Monday.
On Monday, yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. If you haven't listened to it, do so. Should the Tories be doing everything possible to get a sensible, articulate, grown-up like him re-elected and in a senior shadow ministerial role, or even better, as a future Tory leader? Says Andy in Sevenoaks. What do you think, Matt?
Oh, I'd love to see Damien as Conservative leader. I mean, I think a very, very high opinion of him, which was entirely vindicated by the chat we had with him on Monday about his book, about Lloyd George and about technology and about politics. I mean, the sad answer, Andy, is that people like Damien, who are thoughtful and decent and come from a side of the Conservative Party that's committed to those things and the so-called One Nation tradition of Harold Macmillan and Gilmore and Heseltine and Ken Clarke and all those guys, I'm afraid they're now totally marginal. Yeah. And the answer to your question is, yeah, I mean, it would be absolutely excellent if he was, I mean, I hope he gets another seat. But the mood of the party is now absolutely in the post-Brexit, it's very much in the right. It's totally obsessed by bloody immigration, and it's absolutely capsized by Nigel Farage and reform. Yeah. So people like Damien, who are, you know, people of substance, yes, they exist, but they're not really. They're at the fringes of the Conservative movement, and I have no reason at the moment to think that will change. I hope it changes, yeah, but it doesn't look like it will in the foreseeable.
I've got to say, in reading Andy's question, the phrase "grown up" struck me as very, very relevant, and and because that's the difference between Damien and Kemi Badenoch. I think is that Kemi Badenoch doesn't. You know, when you talk in I remember talking in a corporate environment in the office, and you describe people, say, well, she's a grown up. Yeah. I wouldn't describe Kemi Badenoch as a grown-up. You know, she feels like a trivial character to me, the way she carries herself and the questions that she asks. And she just doesn't have the heft of somebody who can carry a whole party behind her. I don't think. I know maybe
no,
you've got
I mean, I think that the Conservative Party is very shallow now. Yes. And I also have this old-fashioned belief that the more sane parties there are around, the better, which is not a popular opinion at the moment. Yeah. But, you know, we very critical of Keir Starmer, but one wouldn't say he was crazy, right? He's not. I mean, the Labour Party under Keir Starmer is not crazy. It's lost all the problems of Corbynism. It's a rather dull technocratic party, but I'll take that over the alternative. The Conservative Party is sort of nowhere, and I think that's odd because actually, there's a long tradition in this country of people who aren't as inclined to high tax and high spend as Labour may be, but they do believe in the need of government to help those who need it, and they're strong on defence, and they believe in the Atlantic Alliance, and all the obvious points. Yeah. And it's quite handy to have them around looking at the big subjects. And when you listen to Damien, you hear an alpha mind sort of thinking about the big issues of the 21st century. And that's kind of what politicians should be doing, but most of them on the right aren't. Well, I'm very happy to say some breaking news. I was so impressed with Damien's contribution to the podcast that I said, why don't you write a column for us every couple of weeks, and also do us some longer historical pieces, because he's a historian.
So that is going to be another element of the New European.
Another reason to
subscribe.
Become part of the.
Don't just do it for the
tequila drenched community that is the New European.
So if you do want to sign up,
Damien Collins, columnist of the New European.
Yeah, there we go.
Happy Sunday, everyone.
Happy Sunday. Thank you very much for that question, Andy.
This is from Richard Porter. I'm really laughing. If Farage is now fridge, this refers to an earlier podcast for new listeners, should the so-called leader of His Majesty's so-called opposition be bad Enoch, I assume Powell referring to, or just bad enough? What do you reckon, Matt? Richard Porter.
But I mean, we've just discussed Kemi's deficiencies. I think bad enough is perfect, actually.
Bad Enoch, actually, well,
bad Enoch is so relevant now. Given
it is. I mean, although, Enoch was a professor of Greek when he was 12 or something, which I'm pretty sure Kemi wasn't. So, I mean, it fits, but I think bad enough is on the money. I like that.
Bad enough is a great... Richard, I don't know if you work in tabloid journalism, but you've got a career as a headline writer.
That is very good, yeah.
Very good indeed.
Both are very strong.
Next question, please. From Moz in Camden. Are the Mats as depressed as I am by Starmer's pathetically mealy-mouthed reaction to Trump's outrageous plan for Gaza? I get that, especially since Brexit, the UK has to stay on the right side of America, but are there no red lines?
I agree entirely with the spirit of Moz's question. Because, yes, Keir Starmer and David Lammy on Wednesday did say we're still in favour of a two-state solution, and the Gazans should go back to Gaza, and if they're not there at the moment, and they said all the right things, but they did it. The tone of what they did had carried no indignation.
It was placatory, wasn't it?
It was sort of it really didn't acknowledge the point of what Trump had said, which was scandalous and wicked. And I think that Starmer, and by the way, not just Starmer, all the other leaders of the main countries in the democratic countries in the world are going to have to start thinking about this. All right, if this wasn't a red line, what is?
Yeah.
At what point do you start saying in public?
Yeah.
Because the old formula is what Bill Clinton told Blair when he was handing over to George Bush Jr., which was hug them close, which is candor in private, solidarity in public, which is fine with normal politicians. And, by the standards of Trump, George Bush Jr. is a normal politician. But Trump is not. And I think that this is going to go on. I mean, we're just at the beginning. This is going to go on until January 2029. So Starmer and other Western leaders have to decide, are they just going to say, okay, we remain committed to this, or will there come a point on this or another issue where the G7 becomes the G6? Now, this is a very fledgling argument and debate, and I don't have an obvious answer to it, but I do think that there was something vivid and lurid about that announcement, which made me think we've got to start thinking about a world in which America is a totally unreliable ally, which is a scary proposition, but it's there.
Yeah. Also, I mean, on a human level, I think if it wasn't obvious before, it's obvious now that the man is an absolute alpha bully.
Yes.
And we all know how you have to deal with bullies, as painful and as tough as it may feel.
Yeah.
You've got to stand up to them.
And don't forget, it's not written in the rules that you have to agree with the I mean, Thatcher and Reagan were a famous partnership, right?
Yeah.
One of the most famous.
Yeah.
But she tore him to pieces over the invasion of Grenada, which was a Commonwealth country.
Yeah.
And tore him to pieces over nuclear disarmament issues. I mean, in other words, being part of a special relationship, in as much as it ever did or still exists, doesn't mean abject kowtowing.
No, but and I mean the reverse is true, Matt.
Of
because
course.
I'll tell you, I mean, bullies strength respects strength.
Yeah.
Donald Trump will know within 5 seconds of meeting a world leader who he can push around, and he'll just mentally file that person away as somebody not to worry about.
Well, you can tell by what he says about Starmer that he has already done that.
Yeah.
And he sees
he's not going to be a problem.
He's an affable,
doing a good job,
mostly irrelevant person. Yeah. Britain's quite important to intelligence and defence, so we'll try and keep him out of the tariffs. But he didn't rule it out.
No, and we've got to remember the things that somebody as facile and shallow as Trump wants from us. So, in other words, our leverage. He wants a state visit.
Yeah.
He wants his nice golf courses. He wants
someone should have been on the phone to Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, and I very much doubt they were, saying, "Look, if you want a state visit." You better stop taking us for granted, right?
Mate, we've got the original fucking gold coach, right?
Yeah.
If you want to step into that.
We've got and also your golf course can, terrible things can happen. It's a very nice golf course you got there, Mr. Trump.
Yeah, Mr. Trump. Wouldn't want anything nasty
to that, right?
Look after your golf course.
We know where your golf course goes to school, Mr. Trump. No, this is getting ridiculous. But it would be entirely reasonable for Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's chief of staff, to ring up Susie Wiles and say, a heads up would have been nice.
Yeah.
I bet you anything you like, they didn't.
Because they're too scared to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Moz from Camden, thank you for your question. We'll take a very short break and we'll come back in just a moment. Welcome back, dear listeners. From Trevor in Melbourne, or Melbourne, Australia. Should I do it in an Australian accent? Would that offend every Australian on the planet?
No.
In a recent podcast, you mentioned the customs union, the single market, and the European Union. Could you please explain the differences between the three for a mere colonial? From Trevor in Melbourne. P.S. My father was a foreman toolmaker. Documentary evidence is available upon request. You're not related to Keir, are you, Trevor?
Sir Keir Starmer.
long lost brother. So the difference between the customs union, the single market, and the European Union?
It's actually a very good question, because I think people tend to confuse them. I mean, the European Union is the easiest one, because that's the successor, that's the political and constitutional body of the whole thing, the 27 member states. Founded in 1993 after Maastricht, it's successor to the European Community and the European Economic Community, which goes all the way back to the Treaty of Rome. And that's the whole damn thing. So that's kind of the easy bit. The bit that gets confused is the customs union and the single market. And the way to think about it is the customs union is the trade agreement that sets common tariffs on goods imported from outside the union and ensures absolute, transparency inside the union.
Yeah.
The single market goes further and is a much more important and dynamic thing, because it removes non-tariff barriers, which enables free movement of goods, services, and of course the issue that always was so toxic in the Brexit debate, people.
Yes.
And capital between member countries. So that's the difference, So you can have a customs union with the EU and not be in it at all.
Yes.
So Turkey does, for example.
And you can be a member of the single market, but
can.
not be in the European Union,
can.
like Norway and Iceland.
Which means you're a rule taker rather than a rule maker.
That's right.
But economically, it makes a lot of sense.
So the big downside, the thing that the single thing that's most contentious is the movement of people, the free movement of people, and that's specific to the single market.
Customs union doesn't involve that at all.
Doesn't involve that at all. So you could quite easily join the European Union customs union. Yes. And not have freedom of movement.
Or if you wanted to, and it would, I don't know if you would want to, but you know what Brexit folk are like there. So you could negotiate a special customs union.
Yes. But would they not say, well, what's the difference between that and the free trade agreement that we've got?
Because the free trade agreement includes all sorts of country of origin complications.
Yes.
So the Lib Dems have been pushing a customs union, and I think actually, A, it's a good idea because anything's better than what we've got.
Yeah.
And B, it's intelligent because it keeps the idea of our relationship with Europe going, but without the single market sort of dashboard flashing issue of free movement. Now, we would, of course, love to be back in the single market, not to speak of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I think actually Ed Davies, it's intelligent of him to start with the customs union.
I wish Ed Davey. I wish someone would plug him in and recharge his batteries, though. His performance at PMQs.
It's a bit low.
He's saying the right thing, but he's a low energy guy.
Yeah, he is a low energy guy.
Compared to the performance before the election, where he was like the Duracell bunny.
Yes.
He's very low energy vibes right now.
Been around a long time, Ed Davey. Yeah. I mean, stamina is a really interesting question in politicians.
Yeah.
Because the really successful ones have amazing stamina.
Yeah. But there's a bit, I understand Ed, he's a really nice guy.
Oh, he's a great guy.
And it comes over that he's a really nice guy.
But that's
he
not
lacks
enough.
A bit of that edge, No,
you've got, and also in Parliament at PMQs, which is almost certainly the only bit that ever really possibly just about gets into the heads of most viewers, you got to really go all out.
Yeah.
And you're right, he's not as high energy as he should be.
So, Trevor, I hope that has come to explain. It's a good
question, though.
It's a great question. I bet you don't have to be from Australia not to have a clue what that's all about. I think a lot of
mistake them.
Brits don't either. Gareth Bond at Gareth Bond 3631. This is yours, Matt, to read, isn't it?
Hey, Mats, thanks for the reasonable voices. I don't know what
whose reasonable voice are you to? How dare you, Gareth?
How very dare you? Re-audience for The Brutalist at the cinema. People who have artistic understanding are not thin on the ground. We're just impoverished in time, artistic space, and change.
Well, that's a statement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know quite what to say about that, except...
did we suggest they were thin on the ground?
No, I think what we did say as a sort of due warning was that, this is a film. This is not Spider-Man, right? Or Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
But
you've written a brilliant piece this week very much. In the New European. Yet another reason to subscribe. A brilliant piece about what it all adds up to and
why it struck such a chord. And I, in preparation for that, I went to see it again last Saturday. And as I was mentioning to you earlier, the cinema was full, so it's obviously struck a chord. And Gareth, I agree with you. I think that there are lots and lots. And one of the things that the Brutalist's sort of success has shown is that there are people who like difficult films.
Yeah.
Hurrah for that.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you for your observation, Gareth. Next question, please.
Following on from your conversation last week about The Brutalist, have either of you watched The Substance? It's also nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. I watched it last week and was blown away. It's a full-blown body horror film mixed with social satire about sexism, ageism and unattainable beauty standards, but I thought it was exceptional and essential viewing. James Hansen.
I have seen it and I loved it, I must say. I was very enthusiastic about it. I did think towards the... No spoilers, obviously, but I did think towards the end...
It got a little bit silly.
It got a little bit silly, which I guess was the point. It reminded me in that regard, as good as The Substance is, I wouldn't compare it to this masterwork by the much missed David Lynch, but it did remind me in its kind of devolvement towards the end with Mulholland Drive, where things sort of spin out of control.
Dislocation starts to yes,
and there was a sense of that in The Substance. But it's a bloody great film.
It is a great film, and a lot of people have expressed squeamishness about it, but you don't have to go and see it if you don't like. I mean, it's perfectly clear it's a body horror film, and Demi Moore, I think,
superb,
gives a great performance. I'm all for it. Yeah, it's a great film. Quite right,
James. Thank you for flagging that up. We're always interested in what you are listening to, reading, watching, dear listeners. Do send in any observations like that to 2mats@tnepublishing.com. We want the tips as much as you do.
Absolutely, it's all going on movies this week, isn't it?
More movies. Oh my God, here we go. Lena from Bath says, for those of us who don't want to sit through a 19-hour film about modernist architecture, can the Mats recommend for those of us with jobs and family commitments a movie other than The Brutalist that is not so long and a bit more entertaining?
Okay, well, speaking as a Brutalist fan, actually,
yes, Lena.
get your priorities right. Couldn't you just ask your family? Can't you get your babysitter? Can't you get the au pair to look after the family? Anyway, I thought, well, okay, I get it. 215 minutes, bit of a stretch. I think it's brilliant, and Matt thinks it's brilliant, but come one, come all, we say on this podcast, right? Yes. So I was looking at specifically the issue of duration, films out there, right? And here goes. Okay, so the lead in Friday's Culture newsletter was a very good new movie called September the 5th, which is about the Munich Games, but specifically about the way it was covered by ABC News, the terrorist, the hostage crisis there. And it's a very good claustrophobic sort of flop sweat journalism procedural high tension movie. But best of all, it's only 94 minutes long. The new Mike Lee, in which Marianne Jean-Baptiste cruelly denied.
I haven't seen this yet. You love this, don't you?
Loved it and cruelly denied a nomination for Best Actress. Totally wrong. I mean, it's a towering performance. 97 minutes.
Really?
Right? And then, if you just want something absolutely sort of lie back and watch a bit of fun.
Yeah.
There's a bit of nonsense starring Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
Right? Hi, how's your mum? Called Flight Risk, right?
Oh, yes.
And best of all, it's only 91 minutes.
Is that right?
So
God, just an hour and a half.
It's just that is a load of nonsense, the last one. That is not the new European imprimatur, just to be clear, right? But if you're worried about your time, Lena, and you clearly are time-wise, go and see Flight Risk. And
how long do you reckon Conclave was? Because that seemed to go in a flash. I loved Conclave.
You see, this is the thing, is that I don't normally check on the duration unless.
Let's have a look.
I mean, I would say an hour and a half, but I bet it clocks in at 2.
Let's do some Rogan-esque spot checking.
Let's get Jamie to check it.
Jamie, can you check that? How long was Conclave?
It's possible.
Duration. Conclave was 2 hours.
Yeah,
you're right.
But it felt. I mean,
it was good.
And and Lena, if you change your mind, or you have a change in family or work, or you're sacked. Do go and see The Brutalist, because it'll flash by.
Well, wait. What you could do is rent. I don't know if you've got Amazon Prime. I know you said you've got to see it on a big screen, but
can't be doing with that.
Could you not, Matt? All right, okay. So cinema tickets are you can go for about £6 these days, can't you? You could go on consecutive nights and watch the first half.
Oh, that's clever.
And then go and watch the second half the next night.
Kelly special.
And you've done it in like 2 lots of an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah,
assuming, of course, and we don't know which part of Bath Lena lives in, that the cinema isn't inappropriately far away. Yes. I feel there's a massive backstory behind this question.
I do, honestly. Lena, I think your life is more complicated than you're letting on.
Yeah.
Right, last question. Federico.
Actually, and the most important question.
Yes, it is. Federico from Bayswater asks, I was moved by your discussion of Adrian Chiles and his declining faith in zips. I now see he is troubled by harm to robots. Why do so many journalists shy away from the big topics like this?
Thank you, Federico. Well, indeed, Adrian was in masterly cerebral form again this week. He was talking about how he gets upset seeing machines hurt.
I don't like it.
I wonder why I find myself caring about this machine. Surely it's as daft as feeling sorry for the Red Austin 1100 Basil Fawlty with a bit of a tree, which I never did. In fact, on reflection, I might also have felt sorry for the tree, but didn't. Now, that is, for me, sort of Wittgenstein.
Well, it's John Paul Sartre, but taken to
John
a new
Paul
level.
Sartre at the only level. But Federico's question is, I mean, we're sort of looking edgy and nervous because we're evading the main point of his question, which is, what are the rest of you doing?
Why do we fall so short?
Yeah, while Adrian's out there, doing the full Aristotle, right?
Yeah,
giving it the
taking existential philosophy to a whole new level.
The full Leibniz, right?
All we've got,
the full bloody Nietzsche, right?
Nigel Warburton, who and his lifetime of experience about asking philosophy.
Yeah,
talking about philosophy,
having the audacity to write an excellent philosophy column every week in the New European. I don't know, Federico. I think that there could be a petition in this, actually, and I think it's if any journalists are listening, and I know you are, I think this is a time to raise our game.
I did ask a friend about. There was some back and forth on WhatsApp with another senior journalist friend of mine, and I did ask, had anyone from the West Midlands ever won the Nobel Prize for Literature?
Good question.
And he came back to me and said, well, the closest would be J.R.R. Tolkien. But Tolkien lacked Adrian's ability to delve into the banalities of modern existence and life with such precision.
Come on, Matt. J.R.R. Tolkien wrote children's stories about elves and hobbits.
Yeah, he didn't tackle zips.
When did J.R.R. Tolkien ever say, Frodo came out and said, fuck the rings, it's zips that bother me.
My zip's broken.
My zip's broken, Imagine if Tolkien had
YKK.
Lord of the Zips. One zip to rule them all, one zip to bind them. My precious zip.
My zip.
Again, getting silly.
Yeah.
Getting silly. But
nothing wrong with silliness on a Sunday.
I think it's nerves. It's nerves because
we know the truth.
We know that we're being made to look small by a giant. And after a lifetime in journalism, it's difficult to accept that.
Oh.
Where did it all go wrong, Matt?
Where did it all go wrong?
I don't know. Why do I feel so sorry for the two Matts I find myself asking on a Sunday?
Never.
Never.
Gaze.
They deserve everything they get. The pretentious bastard.
Oh, Adrian, if you're listening, and I know you're not because you're above all of this kind of stuff.
Well, he's busy with the cogitating on the mysteries of this and other worlds.
Come on to the podcast and broaden our horizons.
Give us a bit of philosophy.
Be welcome anytime you like.
Live and direct, unplugged.
We love you, really. Federico from Bayswater, thank you. I'm going to be presumptuous and say gracias, hombre. Federico, nice. Is Federico Spanish or Italian?
I don't know.
It could be either. Or grazie. Mille.
Grazie mille.
Thank you for your question, Federico. And that's it for this Sunday.
That's it for this week.
Do subscribe to The New European. There's a link in the show notes. Free tequila on offer while stocks last. Send in your emails for next week's Q&A to mats@tnepublishing.com. Apologies to all the people we've offended in this podcast through our lousy impressions and impersonations.
Apologies to those who missed out. We'll get to you next week.
We will certainly find a way of offending you next week. Thanks as ever to our production team at Rethink Audio, led by the great Matt Hill. And until tomorrow,
Monday, we'll have a great Sunday.
Have a wonderful Sunday.